You are now listening to the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
Warning! This movie podcast actually discusses movies. Be aware that it may discuss any of the following elements: endings, surprise twists, unexpected cameos, and all manner of spoilers. If this doesn't appeal to you, then why listen to a movie podcast? Without further ado, please enjoy our feature presentation, The Shameless Picture Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shameless Picture Show. I am your host, Michael Viers, and today I'm being joined by Christopher Sienko, the social media and PR manager for the boutique home video label Deaf Crocodile. In addition to his work there, Chris is a writer and podcaster, and he previously co-wrote and edited the noise music magazine As Loud as Possible. He's also the founder of the tongue-in-cheek Stiff-Legged Film Festival, which takes place exclusively in his living room, where a hand-selected group of gatherers work through the filmographies of specific directors, actors, or movements. Chris is a true movie obsessive, and we're thrilled to have him on the show. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great, Michael. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you. Thank you for that awesome introduction too.
You are very welcome.
Yeah.
When you sent me the email about the film festival, one, I just appreciate that you didn't do a haha film festival. No, you this is a film festival to you, and you treat it seriously, and I love that. And so part of my love of film culture comes from exploring these weird little pockets. Like there was a guy for a while here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, who would just do, he was called the Back Alley Cinema Club, and he would just set up a projector and some folding chairs in an alley and just show a movie. He only announced it the day before, and that was his thing. And he did it for 5 years. So
Hero, absolute hero. I don't know him, but he's already in my Hall of Fame. I love that so much.
I know, and that's the type
Yeah.
of stuff that I go nuts for. And I love, the big official theaters and local film communities and things like the Music Box, or here in Milwaukee, the Oriental Theater. But then I just love that there's someone in a basement somewhere or in a garage somewhere just showing some movies.
Yes, 100%, and doing it for the benefit of a group of people, so that you can sort of, it's fun to watch things on your own, and that's, I think, especially for film fanatics like us, how you do it a lot of the times. But it's a lot more fun when you get to sit with a group and then have your minds collectively blown or exhausted or laugh or whatever. Yeah, I think that's such a crucial part of it.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll get to the genesis of that in a second, but I kind of want to run on a tangent here for a moment. So one of my big passions in besides film is home theater, and I'm big into that world. for better or for worse. And
Yes.
I'm on a lot of different home theater groups, and there's a lot of closed-mindedness in these groups. But one of the things that I feel like I'm constantly battling with, and I have a pretty solid home theater system if at my own, if I do say so myself. And it's nothing compared to some of the people on these pages who spend tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. But because of that, there's this whole anti-movie theater narrative that happens because of it.
Yeah.
And there's some of that going on anyways. Just as TVs have gotten cheaper and bigger, people are like, well, I'd rather watch things at home than go out and deal with people talking. And I don't know, like my worst movie theater experience has never been bad enough to pull me away from it. And it's exactly what you just said. There's a communal aspect to it.
Hmm.
There's been movies that have worked better for me seeing it with people.
Oh, so many, especially comedies.
Yes, like laughing to the Marx Brothers by yourself is not nearly as good as laughing with community.
I know a few people who claim that, and this is insane to me because I've watched it in so many different forms and I always find it hilarious, but some people don't like Hundreds of Beavers. But man, if you see Hundreds of Beavers with a crowd of people at a theater, it is pandemonium, and it is just you almost get, it's like getting pulled into a riptide, like you just sort of get carried on the energy of it all.
No,
But yeah.
that is exactly a film that should be seen in theaters.
Oh yeah.
And I saw it with a raucous crowd. Um, and I don't know how that movie would play on Amazon because like I know a lot of people saw it on Amazon or wherever, and
Mhm.
I just can't fathom
Yeah.
watching that at home. Like maybe after you've already seen it. Because then
Mhm.
sometimes there's a sense memory when it comes to film where you can remember like a perfect example of this would be one of a comfort movie between my wife and I is the movie Neighbors with Seth Rogen.
Oh yeah, sure.
And there is a sequence in that film where, for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, where they essentially as a prank they set up these essentially ejector seats into random chairs throughout the people's lives. And there's
Yeah.
this one specific one where like I think Seth Rogen goes through the ceiling at his job, and seeing that in theaters with a crowd, like everyone lost their shit. And it's still really funny at home.
Right.
But when I'm watching at home, I'm remembering how funny it was seeing it the first time. So I feel like
Yeah,
some of these
yeah.
movies, if you have an experience with them, can then
Mhm.
work.
Yeah, and they have that sort of that chain lightning feeling of like you can't sort of get off of the roller. Marx Brothers movies are great with that. Like it's just a roller coaster. Like I think Dick Cavett said something about like his father seeing Marx Brothers in the theater, and he said people were literally like rolling in the aisles, like the term, like people were falling out of their seats laughing so hard, and and then the counterpoint to that, yesterday I went out to see the movie Reds on 35 millimeter at the Music Box, and that's not exactly a laugh riot, but there's some very funny moments in there, and yeah, you get. Sometimes there's also a lot of fun to just getting locked in with an audience as well. Like if everyone's dead silent, that can be also kind of amazing. Like Days of Heaven on the big screen, like you feel the weight of it, and you feel the weight of everyone just holding their breath through the whole thing.
Yeah, like I didn't realize how much I actually loved The Shining until I saw it on the big screen. Like it's one of those movies that I'd always seen, I always enjoyed, especially as a horror fanatic. Like I appreciated it. I always rated it really highly, but then seeing it not only on film with a crowd, it was a beat up ass print too. I say
Yeah,
with affection.
that does
Um,
help. Yeah.
and it's just like this. Everything about that movie clicked in that moment.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a movie that really sort of bears down on you too. So I can see that for sure.
Mhm.
I mean, my experience with The Shining was, I feel like I was half to 3/4 in the bag just about every time I watched it in someone's dorm room or whatever, about 4,500 times in college. Yeah.
I don't think I could imagine watching that movie under any sort of substance.
Yeah. I could see that. Yeah. Sometimes you take what the situation you have. I think I saw Lost Highway for the first time on like a 13-inch TV screen in a friend's basement. Not optimal, but it put the venom in me, and eventually getting to see it
Back
full
when
was
that
a lot
felt like
better.
a large television, too.
Yeah. No, this was small even by small standards, but it was just like, I got this new movie. All right, let's do it. All right, it's tiny, but that's fine. We're drunk.
All right. So how did your love for, like I said, I'm not even gonna say the theatrical experience, but the communal experience, how did that lend itself to you founding the Stiff-Legged Film Festival?
Um, yeah, I don't think I was as much thinking in terms of the communal experience at the time. I feel like that's something that kind of happened later, and I'll also say kind of a late in life ADHD diagnosis has rearranged me in ways, with some some meds and so forth, that I feel like I'm able to lock in both to a movie and also to a group of people a lot better. I have memories, in like the early 2000s or late 90s, trying to watch The Third Man and just being like, come on, when Orson Welles going to get on the screen, like not being a good movie watcher at all. But I would say Stiff-Legged Film Festival came about because of the sort of thesis of your show, the concept of the shame list. I've always watched movies, family watched, a lot of movies. We didn't have like a big home video collection, but we, always tape things off the TV or watch things over and over. And, and I think that sort of the repetition of it also made me feel like I was like the sickly kid in grade school who was always falling a little behind in their studies, like, you'd read a book like Danny Perry's Cult Movies, especially in the, 80s or 90s when you're, I grew up in middle of Michigan, and a lot of these things you're like, wow, El Topo, that sounds great. Can't imagine a world where I'm going to get to see that. So you would just collect these ideas of movies that exist out there somewhere. Andy Warhol's Bad, or even things like, It Happened One Night or whatever. Like, you were always sort of under the sway of whatever, was on the afternoon TV movie. I remember seeing Godzilla versus the Smog Monster way before seeing any of the sort of like original, the closer to the source ones, and seeing, just half of Ben with commercial interruptions and things like that. So, it was always a little bit ramshackle, but the original prequel, the very first thing that got me excited about Stiff-Legged Film Festival was some friends invited me over. I'm almost ashamed to say it, but like, we sat around for all day and watched all 4 of the Ilsa movies, Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS.
Okay.
And yeah, fine, good fun, long day. But there was something about that sort of completing a set nature of it that just really pinged in my head. And it's like, there's that feeling of like, well, now I can talk to people about, the Ilsa movies, if anyone cares to ask me. And I think that's part of the shameless thing too, is there, I don't know about you, but like, if I haven't seen a movie that everyone else has seen, there's that temptation to kind of pretend like you have.
Oh yeah, like
oh yeah. Oh, I love that scene. Love that scene. So good.
That was the whole reason this show began. I remember the one I always quote is Apocalypse Now, because up until I did the show, I hadn't seen it, but I didn't want to admit that I hadn't seen it. So you just kind of hope they don't ask you questions.
Yeah, as long as there are no follow-up questions, the answer is yes.
Absolutely.
So the first proper Stiff-Legged Fest came in 2001, and again, I just rented all 7 Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Let's just watch them end to end. And I think that apart from, okay, I've seen all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, had friends over, had some drinks, had some laughs. Wasn't it crazy when he did a Nintendo joystick and bounced that guy into the ceiling? The other part of it was the sort of conversations that would come up between each of the films, and having like a room full of people like, oh, what about that? And how does that compare to, this other previous thing, that happened in part 2 or part 3, or how they're continuing the Dream Warriors idea or whatever. And yeah, that stuff was really exciting. So it was in 2002 when I was watching one of those old, this is like the Netflix when you would rent discs by mail, and they had this real janky series of documentaries called The Directors. And there were these little hour-long sort of just cobbled together talking head, Bill Curtis type things about like Brian De Palma or John Cassavetes or Robert Altman or whoever. And I was watching the one for Robert Altman, and I was like, boy, there's a lot of good looking movies in here. There's McCabe and Mrs. I've never seen that one. And there's Thieves Like Us. That looks amazing. Oh, California Split. I've never even heard of that. And then like, it was like a moment where I just feel like I was standing there and I just kind of like stopped and I was like, am I doing this? Am I really going to try and watch every single Robert Altman movie? There's like 50 of them. And this is, I say 2001, no torrenting, very few DVDs, still kind of like doing tape trading with, sites like Super Happy Fun.
And I don't imagine the library was the source it is now.
No, yeah, not as much. I mean, I was lucky I lived in Chicago, and so things like Facets were able to help me out with certain titles, and like online sites like Subterranean Cinema, where you could do kind of like bootleg tape trading and stuff. I remember getting
was Odd Obsessions around at that time too?
Not yet. It was getting
Okay.
close. Odd Obsession came, I think, a couple years later.
Okay.
But obviously that's a perfect example of like a group and a nexus. And I remember sitting in like folding chairs and watching Beyond the Valley of the Dolls for the first time with like 20 people, and it's just, you never forget something like that. But yeah, so for like, I don't know how many months, 6 months, something like that, I was trying to track down every single Robert Altman movie, from, The Delinquents to Countdown to Cookie's Fortune, all the stuff that, I would not have otherwise been able to discipline myself to watch, but which I assumed probably would be pretty good. And we watched 50 films in 3 weekends. I think it was something like that. It was
wow.
So to give you an example of how, and I was about 25, 26 around this time, to give you an example of how barbarous the schedule was, the first night started at 7 p.m., ended at 5 in the morning, and then resumed at 10 a.m., 5 hours later, and then went through again till 2 a.m. Saturday night, and then started again like noon Sunday. I think we went through something like 20 films just on that first weekend. And, MASH ended up playing at like 3 in the morning or something ridiculous like that. Because there was that feeling of like, well, one, immersion has got to be, but also like, if I don't do it in this insane way, like I'm either going to lose my nerve or it's going to take 7 weeks, or something like that. And so you said, you were saying like taking like a homebound film festival seriously. One of my the things that people joke about is I had a website that had all the listings, and I had a line on there that said all start times are rigid, and people thought that was hilarious because it's like, who cares, it's you and your VCR, why does it have to be rigid? But it's like, this thing's already going until 5 a.m. if we don't,
yeah, you have to be.
If you don't honor my 5-minute breaks for a bathroom break and get another beer, like we're going to be here till noon tomorrow,
No, and I think there's also something to, because I assume, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I assume when you're doing these, you're not pausing the movie.
No, not if I don't have to.
And there's something to that. And I sometimes am a slave to the pause button more than I should be, just because I don't. Part of it is because I am an ADHD person, and I want to make sure I'm catching everything, and I also don't want to miss anything. So if I need to pause, because sometimes a thought comes to my mind, and I need to look something up. Well, I don't want to miss the movie, so I'm gonna pause it. But part of what I love about the theatrical experience is the movie theater doesn't give a fuck.
Oh,
the
yeah.
movie theater,
No.
the theater is going to keep playing.
Mm-hmm.
If I have to pee, well, then I got to try to time things out.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried to do that for myself. I can do it a lot easier if I'm having people over. But if it's just me and my wife, I struggle with it a lot more. But I love that. I love that idea of just doing it. Just let the film play, let it breathe. It's going to play no matter what. So, these seem like marathons. How many people do you normally invite, and how many people usually stick around?
My guess, I still have kind of a loose, invite list of people in in the city, I would invite people in other cities with the understanding that it's like, I know you mostly just are interested in what I'm going to play. There's no way in hell you're going to come from, Detroit or whatever. But about 40 people I invite. The most I think I've ever had in a single screening was probably about 15, which, it's always been just kind of either, one bedroom apartments, or now I'm in a bungalow in Chicago. And so 8 people is pushing it, 15 was really pushing it for the, I think it's for the Gene Hackman in the 70s festival. We did a very weird thing where we simulcasted. I briefly had 2 TVs. And so I ran like, I don't remember what I did. I ran some kind of like an aux cable out to a second TV in another room. And so the main room people, packed it. And then if there was overflow, I think we all watched one of the sort of really violent Western, The Hunting Party, I think, or something like that. But as far as sticking it out, I have a couple of real diehards. My friend Adam Witt, who was in Chicago when it started and now lives in Los Angeles, will still get the schedule from me, and he'll download the movies, and we'll talk on the phone, and he will start the movie on his end as I'm starting it on my end. So he really does have kind of like a remote circuit version of some of my festivals, especially the sci-fi dystopia one.
That's amazing. I love this. I love this. Like I said, this sense of community. That's always kind of been what I've wanted to do. Unfortunately, I have a really small living room, so like the most I can usually have comfortably watching a movie is maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
The hope one day is to actually build a theater in the basement and be able to do something more official. But
how much fun would that be? I know.
That's the goal, and that's the dream. And I also just appreciate your tackling of filmographies.
Yeah.
Part of, and maybe you can, maybe you might be the same way, but I know of my own personal ADHD, it is hard for me to commit to one thing because my brain is always pulling me to so many different directions. It's why I can't binge. I prefer movies over television anyways.
Yes, 100%.
Not to say I don't like television shows, but if I have the choice, I'd rather watch a movie. But it's why I can't binge, because I don't want to. Sometimes I don't want to stick with one set of characters for too long, or else I kind of stop caring about them. But for myself, like I get. Oh, start continue.
I get kind of a like a sugar headache when I binge TV. Like after 3 or 4 episodes, you start feeling like the joys of this are being overtaken by the just sort of icky feeling that I feel.
Yeah, no,
but which I don't somehow feel if I'm watching a 4-hour movie. You know what I mean?
I think it's because there's a narrative arc that it's taken me on.
There's stakes. There's a certain very specific stakes that, otherwise is like, well, we'll see what Walter and Jesse get up to next week kind of thing.
Yeah. I also like pacing things out. But for me, there's always been this sense of I like having things to discover. Like John Carpenter's my favorite filmmaker, and I've still not seen every one of his films because I know that impulse for sure. I like knowing that there's still something, even if it's not one of his good ones, that is out there for me. But I started at the end of last year, and I funny enough, I was talking to someone about Steven Soderbergh, and I looked up his filmography because I realized, like, man, this guy has literally done everything. And I realized at that time I'd only seen 4 of his fucking movies. So I was like, well, let's change that. And I have been now working through his films chronologically, slowly. I usually only do maybe 2-3 a month, just because with the podcast and reviewing discs, I have enough stuff to watch. But this has been the most I've committed to anyone's filmography chronologically.
End to end. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I would say mine, we're trading our ADHD stories here, but I think mine manifests in the opposite way, in that I do kind of get into a rabbit hole. And I think when I like I say, I think I'm with you in the sense that if I was going to say, I'm going to watch a Robert Altman movie every night for the next 50 nights, there's no chance. That would fall apart almost immediately. 3 days in, I'll be like, no, I don't want to do this no more. But if I know I have made a thing. And the first one, I think not only did we get all the movies, but I got like one sheet posters that I put up everywhere, and I bought press books off eBay, and I bought lobby cards.
You
And
are
I
my
just
type of nerd.
yeah, oh yeah, and it was all sort of like out for people to look at and page through. I had drawings. I would give away like copies of the videotapes when we were done. Like it was very much a kind of a rock and roll circus vibe to those early ones. And eventually a lot of that stuff you just get sick of it and you're like, whatever, but yeah, and I think that was what allowed me to do things at that scale was to say, like, once I start, it's like there's no stopping. We're not stopping. And like you said, we don't do a lot of pausing unless something really catastrophic happens or whatever. But and my wife is trying to sort of steer me away from that a little bit. I think my sort of doctrinaire tendencies have been maybe why I get less people more, because she's like, I think you need like a half hour where people can all kind of come and congregate between movies, because I'm always giving them like 3.5 to 5 minutes between movies. I'm like, okay, everyone get your drinks, sit down.
Yeah.
So it's either like
get me a slice of pizza and I'm ready to go. I'm kind of with you.
It's either 4 minutes of us uncomfortably staring at each other silently, or 10 minutes of like them in the other room. I'm like, hey, it's starting. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess as someone who, as much as I love conversation, I feel like I would appreciate the rigidness of it.
Yeah. And I think what, you were saying about John Carpenter, I definitely have that with especially novelists. Like, I think there's certain novelists where I'm like, I just don't want to finish that last book, because then there's no more David Mitchell, or there's no more Thomas Pynchon, or there's no more Toni Morrison or whatever. But I think because just the field of films is so huge, like I really appreciate just being like, okay, this thing is done. I mean, I'll go back to them and I'll think about it and whatever, but I like the finality of it. My wife also is anti-binge, and I'm very glad, because I don't know if I would be able to sort of like help myself on certain cases, but she's like, one episode, we watch enough TV to eat dinner, and that's about it. And she has it where she'll say, like, she doesn't want to watch the last episode of like a series finale, because you don't want to lose your relationship to the people. Like, I think the time between the second to last episode of Schitt's Creek and the last one was like 2.5 months or something like that, because it was like, I'm not ready.
No, absolutely.
I think with films like this, like, yeah, one completing the set is very, very gratifying to my brain, and two, I think going chronologically is nice, because you really start to see like their stock company come together. It's like, oh, there's Michael Madsen again, or there's Michael Murphy, or there's Paul Dooley's in 3 or 4 of these in a row now. That's pretty cool. Oh, look at their Carol Burnett has been added to the group chat and things like that. So so I think that's fun. The first time when we did the Altman Festival, we all knew about the overlapping dialogue, and it seems like between movies we were always like, okay, now you start talking, and then you start talking to him, and we were trying to like simulate the overlapping dialogue thing in the room. And these things just kind of happen just because you're all together deciding that you're gonna like really immerse yourself in this one topic, and I love that. I live for it.
No, that sounds great. So before we transition into the movie, I do want to talk to you a little bit about Deaf Crocodile and what you do there. So I mentioned off mic that we're actually going to have the two guys from Deaf Crocodile on here very shortly. We're going to have both Dennis and Craig. I don't want to say what the movie is quite yet, but it's one that I'm very excited to watch. So on that episode, we will get really deep into Deaf Crocodile and the history of it and how it came to be. But let's talk about your personal history of Deaf Crocodile. How did you get involved, and how did you end up the social media manager?
Yeah. So you mentioned it before. I back in the day, my beat, I guess, as a writer was experimental music for about 30 years, give or take, pretty much from college until, however long. 2010, I co-wrote As Loud as Possible, the Journal of Noise Culture. I have a copy right here if you're interested. But and then when I was always some movies and a lot of music, and then 2020 hit, and we were all kind of home a lot more. And I don't know why, but just like a switch flipped in my head, and it was all of the space that I had put into record, like tape labels and record labels and, discographies had just completely flipped around to boutique Blu-ray labels and genres that I previously hadn't had any interest in, like giallos or film noir or whatever. And so I kind of I pinged on the sort of rise of the boutique label in the way that I had previously pinged on things like noise cassette labels and things like that. It was like there's this sort of thesis statement that really interesting labels do, and Deaf Crocodile is like right up there at the top. Like they have such a distinctive voice to them, so they it's very interesting to see a company whose sort of business model is like, you've never heard of this movie, but trust me, it's going to blow your mind. Like you gotta give it a shot, and we found like an amazing community of people who are like, yes, every month I'm up for being surprised. Other people will, jump in and out as titles intrigue them or whatever. But I pretty much was interested in Deaf Crocodile from the jump and had a full collection of their stuff. In December of 2025, they put an announcement in their newsletter saying, we're looking for a social media manager, apply here. I was between jobs at the time, had lost my job of 13 years a couple months before that. And it was just one of those things. Like, I think, people talk about, getting involved in the film industry or film restoration or music. And there's that feeling of like, I don't even know where I would start, and this just seemed like I could do this. I've never done specifically social media management, but I've done podcasting, I've done writing. And so I just kind of, I don't want to say love bombed them per se, but like I applied and I just kept giving them ideas and angles because it just seemed so natural. Like I felt like I understood where they were coming from and where the challenges were, trying to sort of create a community that is going to be okay with, I might not know what this movie is, but I trust you to take me on a journey, and my writing to that point had always been, you've probably never heard this album, but let me explain why it would absolutely blow your mind. So I already kind of lived in that lane. So, we had an interview and just sent emails back and forth, and to my complete gratitude and surprise, they said, all right, you're our guy. So I started in January.
That's amazing. And I also love that you kind of had this, I don't want to say like, well, I guess it was a career shift, but you mentioned this shift from music to film, and you obviously still love music.
Yep. And I loved film back then too. Yep.
And then you just decided to just go deep into boutique labels, and it's crazy to me how far you can get just by asking. When I first started this podcast, I was on my first year of doing this podcast. I was at a horror movie convention, and I ran into the guys at Vinegar Syndrome. And if you think about that, Vinegar Syndrome 10 years ago was a very different company.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And not many people had heard of them at the time. And I remember going to their table. I was buying some stuff anyways, and I very haphazardly just was trying to like pitch the idea of the podcast and try to figure out what I had to do to get on their review list. And I very awkwardly fumbled through that conversation, but I was pretty much talking about how much I like them as a product. And the guy I was talking to, I'm not throwing out any names because I don't want people reaching out to them, said, "Oh, do you want me to send you some movies?" I'm like, absolutely. Like that's exactly what I'm looking for. And I just fostered a good working relationship with them where I was just passionate about it. Because like honestly, what I liked so much about Vinegar Syndrome at the very early days is what I find appealing about Deaf Crocodile is that I hadn't heard of so many of the films that they were putting out at the time.
Right.
And still, like they've done some bigger stuff, but looking for really unique and different stuff that people haven't heard of. And I think that is what I find. I think that is why the world of physical media is so important to me, is
Yeah.
because there is this fantastic wealth of stuff that is coming out. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. I constantly just feel like we are in a new golden age for physical media.
Absolutely. Oh, there's no question. And also, I think just a new golden age for people who want to take chances on things. I think one of the other things that really, I know there's problems with it, but in 2020, I just remember, sitting on the couch, not being able to go outside, not really knowing what to do, but reading Letterboxd a lot and looking at people's lists. And I'm someone who's always had not just a shame list. I sent you my sort of primary shame list, in preparation for the show, but I'm working off of, probably 10 different shame lists of different genres and so
Yeah.
forth. But I think one of the things that really sort of changed things was a friend of mine, Phil Blankenship, who works for the New Beverly, had a list of his favorite sort of like horror and exploitation films. It was actually went back to it's a long story, but it's this sort of canonical list of these film essentials. And I think I just kind of was like, I've never really watched that much genre horror. I was a scaredy cat as a kid, and I was an art house snoot in my teens and 20s. And so I think just kind of working my way through sort of things like, The Kindred or Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, or like, wow, damn, there's a lot of really cool stuff here. And then you hear about like the American Horror Project, and then you realize, oh, friendship with art house ended. American regional horror film is my new best friend. Like, it was just crazy.
Yeah.
Like how hard I fell for the works of like William Graffet and so forth I had never heard of before that.
Oh no, I love his work. I didn't know that's how I always pronounced it William Greffy, but I was like, that doesn't sound right.
I learned from books and from podcasts. I think someone said that, and I probably was just like, "Yep, they might be right." And
Honestly,
they might not be. I don't know.
That sounds great. Or like lately, I've been really into the films of Nick Millard.
Oh yeah,
It's like there's something about them. None of them. I have not seen one that has been truly great, but I'm
No.
endlessly fascinated by everything that he's putting out. And for me, because I went to film school, and that's what really opened up my mind to a lot of things. Because going into film school, I was like a hardcore horror nerd, and I still am in a lot of ways. But I wouldn't even watch most things if it wasn't like didn't have some sort of genre element to it.
Right.
Going to film school kind of cracked open my brain and got me interested in so much more. And it almost is stressful in a way because now there is so much more stuff. Before it's
Mhm.
like my pool is really small, but now it's ginormous. And I'll talk to friends and I'll tell them about this film I watched. They're like, oh, that doesn't really sound like something I would be interested in. And for me, it's like, I'm interested in everything. There's not a genre out there that there's not at least one title that I like from it. Comedies, romantic comedies, romance movies, westerns, everything. There's at least one film from every, probably more than one, but I'm being generous, from every subgenre that I can think of, where there's a movie that I love. And yeah, I love the act of discovery, and that's why I love that companies like Deaf Crocodile exist. And I also think we're in this really interesting world right now for boutique labels where it's simultaneously really interesting, but then really, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. Let me back up a little bit. So you have companies like Arrow, and this is not a slight to Arrow in any way, shape, or form, because I love Arrow. They're releasing some really big stuff. They're doing like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I bought that box set. They're
Nice.
doing The Mask. They're doing movies that have been very well documented. You can get some fantastic voices in film culture to come on and talk about them. But realistically, these films are so popular, you can get probably Joe Schmo off the street to come and, they could probably do a commentary on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like just a fan commentary. We're in this world now where there's so many films. Like I'm looking at right now the films that Deaf Crocodile has released, and there's stuff that pretty much other than one film, and maybe a couple directors, I have no idea what any of these films are. I don't even know how I'd go about tackling research for it. So we're in this really interesting world where you have people trying to uncover, and if you can't get an interview with someone who's involved in the film, you kind of have to get creative with your perception of the film and film criticism. Yeah, I think we're in this new uncharted territory where there's so many films coming out that don't have a whole lot of information. So you kind of have to tackle the special features in a different way. And I just find this all fascinating. I'm not really making a point. I'm just kind of talking now at this point.
Yeah, isn't that interesting though? Because 5 years ago isn't that long ago in the sort of grand scheme of things. I mean, Mondo Macabro was doing this 20 years ago or whatever. But, when you hear interviews with people from some of the bigger boutiques, or people from like Shout or whatever, and they're like, yeah, physical media is on its way out. There's just no more movies to release. And
bullshit.
That is so the opposite of what's happening. You mentioned Vinegar Syndrome before. To me, one of my favorite things that they've done, and it's basically a documentary featurette, but it's it's a full-length movie, is Against the Grain, that movie they did about film preservation.
I wish I could see,
on the Lost Picture Show box set.
I know. I
would give damn near anything for them to put that out as a single disc.
I know, because I want to buy that movie.
More people need to see that. Yeah, and I know a lot of y'all are not dirtbags like me who want to see the other 10. But
I don't mind it. It's just, for me, that documentary is what I want to see.
Oh, 100%. Well, the thing is it really gives you that sense of the both the sort of ticking time bomb of it all. I mean, we talk about, obviously saving nitrate film and saving, really, could be lost films, but there's still that feeling, with exploitation films and with horror films, like a lot of this stuff is, dying on the shelves as we speak. So there's always that feeling of not only is there more to find, but if this doesn't happen now, it's not going to happen in 10 years. The element's going to have, decayed or faded, or, the rights have gone away again or something like that. So, I mean, that movie really will get your blood pumping in terms of, in that, man, they should just like release it to Tubi or something, man. Like, cause I feel like that's like a great calling card for the company.
Put it on their YouTube or something.
It's such a great calling card for what they do,
Yeah. So,
and everybody else too. I mean, it's, Severin's in there. My beloved Chicago Film Society is in there. Oh, and speaking of Altman, they talk about their restoration of one of Robert Altman's first written films. He wrote a film in Kansas City called Corns a Poppin', and it was a film made for the Popcorn Council, and it's a country western jamboree with some acting and some storyline and a whole lot of popcorn. And Chicago Film Society saved and restored it on 35, and it's a beautiful thing.
I love that. And while I'm not in Chicago proper, I feel like we're essentially neighbors. We living up in Wisconsin.
I go to Milwaukee all the time. We're definitely hanging out, unless you tell me not to. If you put a restraining order on me, but otherwise we're definitely hanging out.
No, we definitely are. But my point was, I feel kinship to anything that Chicago is doing for film preservation.
Get it. Yeah.
All right, so I feel like our preamble was about 40 minutes. So let's move on to the topic for the day. So on today's episode of the Shameless Picture Show, we're tackling one of my all-time favorite films. So much so that it's been in my Letterboxd top 4 since I joined the app back in 2016. Brian De Palma's Blowout. The film follows Jack Terry, a sound technician working for a low-budget company specializing in exploitation films. While out recording audio for a new project, Jack inadvertently captures the sound of a car crashing into the river. He rushes in to help and manages to save a young woman named Sally, but the other passenger, the governor, does not survive. When Jack reviews his recordings, he begins to suspect that what was believed to be a simple tire blowout may actually have been a gunshot, evidence of an assassination. As he pieces together the truth, Jack becomes entangled in a dangerous political conspiracy involving a government cover-up. With both his and Sally's lives at risk, he's determined to uncover what really happened. Blowout struggled at the box office during its initial release, earning $13.8 million against its $18 million budget. However, it was warmly received by critics, most notably Pauline Kael, who wrote that the film flows and everything that happens seems to go right to your head. It's hallucinatory and it has a dreamlike clarity and inevitability. The film has since gained a devoted following, including filmmaker Quentin Tarantino, who famously used one of its musical cues in Death Proof. The film stars John Travolta, Nancy Allen, John Lithgow, and Dennis Franz as Manny Karp. With music by Pino Donaggio, cinematography by Vilmos Ziegman, and editing by Paul Hirsch, written and directed by Brian De Palma from 1981. This is Blowout.
It began with a sound that no one was ever supposed to hear.
He's the one who saw it?
Yes, he says he pulled the girl out of the car.
I would like you to forget about her.
Yeah, that's what I heard just before the tire blew out. You're right, it was a shot.
He recorded a murder they say never happened.
There's still loose ends, witnesses. The girl, I've decided to terminate her. Terminate her. Terminate her.
Brian De Palma's Blowout. Now you hear it. Now you don't.
All right. So, I honestly never thought I didn't think I'd actually get to do Blowout on the podcast, because I just feel like it was one of those films that so many, even though it's not that big of a film, so many people I know have seen it.
Yeah. I didn't think I realized that it was one of your Letterboxd top fours. I'm excited to get the insight of someone who is really into this movie, because I love my first viewing of it, but I do feel like I have a lot to learn and probably a lot more watches to do.
Oh yeah, it's so hard to list top films, but it was the easiest top four of my life. It's Halloween, Heather's, Blowout, and Ed Wood.
Nice. That's the other thing I was gonna say. I'm sorry to take us back to the preamble, but to me, like, the two best things in the past 30 years or whatever in terms of film culture are, one, the de-shamification of the shameless, which you're doing the Lord's work in that regard, and the other is the movie Ed Wood. Yeah. I don't think before the movie Ed Wood there was no language to like talk about movies that weren't good, quote unquote, without calling them bad movies and dismissing them or mocking them or laughing at them or ignoring them. And it just seems like that was such a seismic shift when Ed Wood came, where, it took a while, but people were like not going to, at least see his point. Let's see his point of view. Like, oh, yeah, guys, trying. There's something interesting here. And I love that movie, and I think it really legitimately changed like film culture for the better.
I absolutely agree with you, and I'm also a firm believer. There's two phrases that I don't believe in. I don't believe in so bad it's good. Then it's just good. There's no such thing as so bad it's good. And I also don't believe in a guilty pleasure. You just enjoy things. And I feel like Ed Wood helped a lot of people just realize that they could do that.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, go ahead. I was going to say something and I completely forgot what it was.
No, it's perfectly fine. So we can talk about my history with Blowout in a little bit, but I just want to get your initial reactions. Like, give me your too long didn't read before we get into the conversation as a whole.
Okay. Well, I think because the names were so similar, I assumed that this was going to be De Palma's homage to Blow Up, the Antonioni movie. And so, of course, like a good dork, I watched Blow Up first, and then watched Blowout later in the afternoon. And the first impulse when you're sort of watching these two movies is to start taking notes about it versus Blow Up, and David Hemmings versus John Travolta, and Nancy Allen versus Vanessa Redgrave. But I got like 10 minutes in, and just the notes went away. I'm like, these are not the same movie.
No,
they're not even
it's
similar. It has a lot more to do with like the conversation.
Yeah.
And the parallax view, and
it's
the
kind of
sort
like a
70s
weird
paranoia cycle.
It's kind of like a weird child of all of those concepts.
Yes, 100%. So yeah, my TLDR, I just absolutely love that style of filmmaking, the sort of 70s paranoid, they're all out to get us, but also the sort of was it John Ford who said like people want to see someone be really good at their job or whatever. Like I love audio technicians. I love, things about filmmakers who see things and hear things, or photographers. I love anything where there's like a very exacting set of criteria for like a very specialized skill, whether it's sound engineering or high fashion or drag or filmmaking or whatever. And so that stuff all really like pinged for me in this. I thought it was interesting that it felt like a dirty old New York movie, but it's actually a dirty old Philadelphia movie. It took me a while to notice, like, oh yeah, this
It's
is
also strange how it feels dirty and gritty, but it has all of De Palma's polish on it.
Oh yeah.
It's like the way he moves the camera and just the mechanic. Like he's a very mechanical yet fluid filmmaker, and so to have that combination of like the grit and the grime, but in a very hyper fluid way. It's like an old car that you just gave some grease to.
Yeah, but it still has all the rust, the rust marks on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I first discovered this film, I want to say, so the Criterion edition came out in 2011. The initial one, the Blu-ray edition came out, and I had been hearing about this film because I was 21 at the time that the Criterion edition came out, and I was getting really into the Hollywood brats and the grittiness of the 1970s filmmaking, and kind of how that's because this is a spillover 1970s film.
I was really surprised to see this was 81. This felt like 78 to me.
Yeah. And I just was reading up about a lot of those guys. I was reading up about Coppola. I was reading up about Scorsese, and I was reading up about De Palma. And I heard the basic, I think, story about how it was about a sound technician. And I also really into the world of editing and film editing because that was my background for a while. And I think before I'd seen the Criterion, I think I had seen this on television. Just right before that, I became absolutely enamored with the film. I think I taped it off of Turner Classic Movies, if I'm remembering correctly. But then once that Criterion came out, I begged one of my friends for Christmas because she was like, "What do you want for Christmas?" I was like, "I know this is going to be expensive, and I apologize now, but I really want this." And I've essentially worn that movie out since because it was everything that I wanted it to be. Like I said, it has that aspect of John Travolta's really fucking good at his job.
Yes.
And I love watching films where people get to do their job. It doesn't matter if you're a scientist and you're mixing together sciencey shit. It doesn't matter if you are, operating a giant machine. Like some of the best stuff in the movie Norma Ray was just watching people work those machines.
Yeah.
Or Blue Collar and just watching the way that they work those machines. I love all of that. So not only is he really skilled at what he's doing, so I appreciated that aspect. But then, it's a genre film. It's a paranoid thriller. It's got probably the best John Travolta performance that I've ever seen. And then to quote a tweet by Guillermo del Toro, he just talks about this film. He said it's a movie that starts as a political thriller and ends up as a meditation on the cannibalistic nature of art. and it just has all these things happening in this film, and every one of them I think is fascinating. Normally you try to mix all these components together and it would fall flat, and somehow De Palma does
he is
it.
juggling a lot of balls in this. It's
Like,
wild.
it could have just been a movie about a sound designer. I think that I would have enjoyed that movie, but I think that would have been probably a pretty boring movie just on its own. It could have been could have been the paranoid thriller. It could have been, the story of an artist. It
could have been the Liberty Bell Killer.
It could have been the Liberty Bell Killer. It could have just been Nancy Allen trying to fucking become a makeup artist, because she is so fucking good in this movie.
She's adorable in this. Yeah. Absolutely.
It could have been any one of those things, and he manages to do them all and do them well.
Yeah, and again, it's 1981, but I think in the pantheon of 70s bummer film endings, Blowout might be the most bummer ending I have ever seen. It is a literal punch in the stomach, man. I could not believe that that's where it ended. That beats Hardcore. That beats, I don't know what, Midnight Cowboy. It's wow.
Yeah.
What an ending.
And it's also one of those things. So I rewatched it for this podcast, and this is one of the earliest films I had my wife watch when we were in our dating period. And when she was watching it this most recent time, she had forgotten some of these elements, and she definitely forgot that ending. So, spoiler for anyone who's not watched Blowout, go fucking watch it. But you should hear it. You hear at the beginning of this show that we're gonna spoil things. The fact that, like, after he finally gets up to her and, he stabs John Lithgow's character, and my wife was like, wait, she doesn't survive in the end? I was like, absolutely not. And then, just the best piece of acting that John Travolta's ever done was that ending when he's like, it's a good scream. And then
and then the hands over the ears.
Yeah. It's
devastating.
He's absolutely sweaty, and there's, like, you can smell the cigarette smoke. I'm definitely one of the. I've never been a smoker because both of my parents were, and I couldn't handle the smell. But I'm definitely an person who would have been impressionable enough to smoke because of how cool it looks on movies.
Oh, hell yeah!
And it's like, this movie's got so much cigarette smoke. I think he's ripping a heater in that scene. It's just,
how do you even mix sound without cigarettes?
I don't think it's possible.
That's how it looks. Yeah. How do you edit a film without cigarettes everywhere? It seems like inevitable. Yeah. That's De Palma's skill with the sort of palming the card like that. Like he really, even up till the end, like, okay, I knew, I figured it out. Okay, Nancy Allen's not going to survive, but then him sitting listening to the tape in the graveyard, I'm like, okay, that's where it's going to end. But like and then he flips it one more time. No, I'm going to use this, and it threads the needle of the entire, we can't get a good scream for this dumb slasher movie we're working on.
Yeah,
it's I did not expect that to, I figured the end of that story beat was the two girls, comedically strangling each other.
Yeah.
Which reminded me a little bit of Modern Romance too, the Albert Brooks movie.
I definitely see that.
Yeah.
My wife and I were also, like, discussing about, did he use that scream because he knew it was the best scream he was ever going to get? Or was it he had no other choice because he was probably going to lose his fucking job for not doing it for so long?
Yeah, because he's at the beginning there, he's kind of quote unquote going back to his roots because he's like, all your sounds are garbage. And so the reason he's in the park in the first place is he's like, now you would say you would like clear your sample bank or whatever, but like he's basically like refreshing his collection. And so my take on it was, it's a little bit like the way Robert Forster is in Medium Cool, where he's just such an obsessive for his craft that he's just got to filter everything back into his job. And I think there was maybe like a moment's hesitation, and it's like, well, what else am I going to do with it?
Yeah.
Which is so grim.
It is. So grim. It is so grim. It's sad enough that Sally, Sally Bedina, who is one of the sweetest characters in a movie, And so much so that a good friend of mine, Cameron Masterson, he's a solo folk musician called Teakwood
Hmm,
Gallows, wrote a
nice.
song called Sally Bedina. That's a love
Oh,
song to Sally that
oh,
I absolutely love. Discovered it.
I want it.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
She's such a sweet character, so you don't expect him not to get there in time.
Yeah. No. It's got that sort of,
And another
and then,
filmmaker would have ended it just on that really great shot of him and the
oh, the
fireworks.
fireworks. Yeah. I feel like I knew that scene probably from like any number of like AFI, retrospective, like, oh, the most iconic scenes in movies. Like I've seen that spliced into other things, and I didn't realize, oh, that's Blowout, but I mean, that is a showstopper. But like you said, it doesn't stop the show. It just keeps trundling on to this terrible ending.
Oh,
I mean, that
absolutely.
terrible in the implications. I mean, it's a great ending, but you know what I mean.
So, kind of walk me through yours. You said you had some notes, and I kind of want to walk through your initial feelings on the film. Now that we got my deep history with it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we both sort of agreed it's got a lot more to do with the 1970s conspiracy cycle of movies. Like the conversation just hangs so heavily over this movie, especially
Yes.
like seeing, there's even a point where there's a tape recorder that he can't see in his studio that's recording him, and it has that same ending of like tearing the studio apart and still not finding the thing that's been taken from you or whatever. But I was really surprised to hear someone say, I think Travolta even says, nobody wants to hear about conspiracy, I don't get it. And it's like, well,
Yes.
it's 1981, so I think people were tired of hearing about conspiracy at a certain point, maybe. But and then someone else says something about save your paranoia for public television, and I was like, is PBS considered like a bastion of conspiracy talk, or was he talking about like public access TV?
I'd probably talk about public access TV because
Yeah,
I'm pretending like I was alive during this time period. I wasn't,
sure.
but public access television was pretty much where you put the crackpots for the longest
Oh
time.
yeah. Oh, and still is. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
anyone
There's
could have a
whole lot
show.
of whole lot of public access that's still giving people that space. Yeah. Um, one of the things that, and I also watched it from the Criterion 4K, which as we do, I bought it and then proceeded to not watch it until I had a podcast opportunity to watch it for. But the
I know
4K
this all
really
too
allows
well.
you to do. It really allows you to do some pretty forensic study of the movie posters. And again, if you're a genre or exploitation fan, like I saw The Boogeyman, I saw Food of the Gods,
Yeah.
Empire of the Ants, Squirm, something called Lure of the Triangle looks like a sex farce that I'm very curious about. And in the hallway, I saw him walk past, speaking of Vinegar Syndrome, a copy of a poster for Roberta Finlay's Fantasex, which is a great poster. And it was
Yes.
like, you can see like a sliver of it because it's coming at you, sort of at an angle. But again, those that UHD, I was like, I know what I saw.
Oh, and trust me, it's even very obvious on the Blu-ray as well. Like that Boogeyman poster right outside his door.
Yeah.
At the time when I first discovered this film, I hadn't seen Boogeyman. But seeing it now, it's like, man, I want to know the story of how they just put this grouping of posters together.
Yes.
I also
Well, here.
Oh
Go
no,
ahead.
please.
Oh, I was gonna say, I mean, speaking of like deep pulls, like, and I could be wrong on this, but there's a point where they're showing like a horror movie on TV. Is it Death Smiles on a Murderer, the Joe D'Amato Giallo film? Because it looks like the ending of Death Smiles on a Murderer, which is like an insanely acrobatically edited film. Like, there's two editors on that film, and you can see why. It's like that kind of like Easy Rider, like super fast editing at the end, but it's like very rhythmic. And I'm like, I could see De Palma seeing that and going like, oh yeah, this is my life now, like. And I would love to, maybe better than I do, like I got to imagine De Palma really liked giallos, right?
I do. I'm actually not 100% sure. I would not be surprised, but with his love and admiration for Alfred Hitchcock, I can see it going one of two ways. I can either see it going that he liked them because of how Hitchcockian they were, or I could even see him disliking them because they're, I could quote unquote, ripoffs of Hitchcock. But
They're making a
I'm
mockery of my
truly
beloved Alfred
believing
Hitchcock.
because he has so many giallo influences in his films that go beyond just, oh, giallo is influenced by Hitchcock, so clearly De Palma's films will feel like, no, there's so many, like, especially when you get to his later career, like something like Raising Cain has a lot of giallo
Okay.
influences in it. So I'm gonna put it this way: I don't care what he says. I'm sure he's a bigger fan than he's letting on, or at least,
Yeah.
through osmosis, had seen them and is able to distill them in an interesting way. But I'm never gonna pretend like I understand Brian De Palma because I've listened to enough interviews with him, and as I can never. One of my favorite stories of Brian De Palma is his complete and utter annoyance and frustration with Star Wars is the whole reason there's a crawl. Pretty much he got so frustrated that he had no idea who the fuck any of these people were, what a Wookiee is. He didn't understand he's like, you just start us in a movie and we don't know what the conflict is. So George Lucas is like, well, okay, I'll explain it all. And he added the crawl just to appease Brian De Palma.
Wow. Oh my God. Oh, he specifically was like, okay, have this on my desk by 8 a.m.
Kind of how it felt.
I need to know what I'm looking at. Well, I'm glad you mentioned Raising Cain. I haven't seen it. Shameless, of course, but I know this is not literally ground zero, but is this one of the real origin points for casting John Lithgow primarily as like a stone cold monster?
I would not be surprised. So there, if you get a chance to, on the Criterion disc, there's a phenomenal interview, hour-long interview between Noah Baumbach and Brian De Palma. It feels like the precursor for what would eventually become that De Palma documentary.
Okay.
And they go really deep onto this film. And I don't know if it was Lithgow's first time, but De Palma mentions that everything that they tried to do with Lithgow in this film, he eventually perfected in something like Dexter. And so just the way that he talked about it made me feel like this is one of the earlier examples of him playing this type of character. Because if you look at it, like he was in Obsession with Brian De Palma. I've not seen Obsession, so I don't know what his character is like. But that was Lithgow's second film role. He did a couple things, and then he did Blowout, and then shortly after that, he did Twilight Zone, the movie, Footloose, Buckaroo Banzai. So I would truly believe that.
So, yeah.
Notwithstanding Obsession, which depending on what his role is like in that, I would say this is probably it.
So here's my point about that is there's a couple other films he did between Obsession and Blowout, both of which I've seen. One is the film Rich Kids from 1979 with Trini Alvarado and Paul Dooley, and a made-for-TV movie called Mom, the Werewolf and Me, which is based on a young adult YA novel. My wife is a children's book editor, and she's got a love for what she calls grubby jeans books. There was a late 70s, early 80s strain of young adult novels that always had kind of a teenager with grubby jeans, usually holding a basketball or a book or something like that, and maybe slumped on the floor, and maybe they're like, the stories about how they only have one parent now, or they're making their own way in the world. And he's in both of these films as the kind of flustered, sweet father provider type, but also the sort of like the not that good at it version that I feel like he came back to with things like, Third Rock from the Sun, or, the sort of comedic, because man, like through the entire 80s, like you would say John Lithgow's name and you would like shudder a little bit. Like he just was known as being like perfect at playing like not just creepos, but like really deviant ones.
Yeah.
And he had, and I think this is where that really like locks in, because he's adorable in these other films from just like a year or two before. And then, man, the Liberty Bell Killer, Jesus.
Well, for me, when I had seen this film, like John Lithgow, for me, when I had seen this film, was Third Rock from the Sun and Harry and the Hendersons.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because I hadn't watched Dexter yet. Actually, I still haven't gotten to his point in Dexter. So it was shocking to see this role
Yeah.
out of Lithgow, and for people who are much older than me, I'm sure it wasn't. If you'd seen, because he's got like 3 distinct careers almost. He's
He
got
does.
creepy, weird fucking dude. He's got the voice of reason father figure,
Mm-hmm.
and then he's got his zany side.
Yeah.
And none of them feel like he's playing, like he's being miscast. It's so strange that he can be all 3 of those guys and it doesn't feel weird.
It's like 3 completely different lanes, and then a 4th lane, whatever the hell it was he was doing when he played Winston Churchill in that show, The Crown.
Yeah.
Man, that is some wide acting from Mr. Lithgow.
Yep. And now he's in another weird career choice when he's just really saddling himself to Harry Potter now.
Oh, fun. Okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, he's gonna play Dumbledore, and he's doing a lot of press being like, "You guys are misunderstanding J.K. Rowling." I was like, "Oh, Lithgow, don't do
we're
this."
not doing that. We're
Well,
not at all doing that.
He is.
we understand perfectly. But yeah, no, so my De Palma knowledge is very sort of spotty. So I know you said you also haven't seen Obsession, and I stabbed the sweat off my brow because I haven't seen it either. But I love Phantom of the Paradise,
Me
and
too.
Sisters, and The Untouchables, and so I dip in and out of De Palma, and I'm really excited. I think someone is putting out his early, like, Hi Mom or Greetings, or those ones. Coming out soon,
I
right?
missed it a couple years ago. I know Arrow had done
They had like the trilogy of
the
them. Yeah.
trilogy that, and I missed that, and I will not pay those crazy prices on eBay. I'm hoping someone else does it.
I think I heard that they are. I think I heard maybe Radiance or someone is putting that
All right,
out.
because I will have to pick
Or
that up.
maybe Arrow 4K. Like I saw an announcement a while ago, and I was like, oh, let's do this. Because I did the same thing. I saw the prices of the old Arrow Blu-ray and said, oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But yeah, I would be curious to know if those have any connection, or if like Sisters really is kind of like this, like, okay, now I'm doing this kind of thing, And do you think he ever? Okay, here's another thing I wanted to ask about, in your opinion, because like De Palma's big grace note, his flourish note, is the split screen.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of his films, like that's the moment people talk about, the split screen in Carrie, the split screen even in Phantom of the Paradise is great, with the front stage, backstage one, and of course the Sisters one, the apartment chase. But did you get the sense with this one that the one split screen almost felt like a contract obligation? Like it just didn't make any sense where it was, and it was just kind of like, okay, here's your split screen.
So
you pigs.
I think what he did, and he kind of touched on this a little bit in that interview, where he was still doing he's still doing split screen, but he made up for it with split diopters.
Okay.
Because if you count the amount of split diopter shots in this movie, it's excessive. And I say that as someone are you familiar with a split diopter? So What a split diopter is essentially when you have 2 things in focus at the same time. And this movie used essentially what they do is they put a piece of glass in front of the lens that are focused at 2 different spots at the same time. So, and this little bit of fuzz right here is the glass edge, and you usually try to hide it along the edge of something. So if you think about split diopters as being another form of split screen, there's quite a bit of them in this film. So I'm actually going to search for Blowout right now.
Yeah.
So like here's another good example of the Owl and John Travolta, of how
we're jumping ahead. That's part of my Thrill House moment for sure.
Okay.
Travolta and the Owl, I was like, oh yeah, right, great.
So I think this is what he is doing instead. He is he's using split diopters instead of split screens to kind of get the same effect. You saw it also at the beginning of the film when he's watching something on the news, and you can still see him in the background. And Noah Baumbach asks him about this, and he said it comes down from his experience in the theater. And he's like, what good does it do if I have a TV in the frame and then John Travolta's out of blurry in the background? You want to see everything in focus at the same time. Why not do that? Yeah. So I think he's kind of because he still uses split screen throughout his career after this.
Yeah,
but not as much.
I caught one. I thought it it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Like I felt like there was one where it was like a split screen of him working on his audio and then just the newscast, and it wasn't after the crime, it was before the accident happened, and it just seemed like two things that I could not sort of like pair in my mind at that moment. And I was like, I don't know what you're doing here. So that is interesting to know about the diopter though.
Yeah, so I think that's what he's kind of doing instead, because while he still does include split screens in films after this, not in the same way that he did in his early career.
It's not the move anymore. Yeah.
And De Palma's one of those filmmakers that I want to do a deep dive of and watch through his career and kind of watch the way that his style has evolved. And then, because like you think of something like Mission Impossible or The Untouchables, it still clearly has De Palma's style, but in a different way.
To a completely different end, yeah.
So
and that's the kind of thing. Like I say, I highly recommend a Stiff Legged Film Festival approach to that, because you get to watch those what would be otherwise gradual transformations happen very, very quickly. You're like, oh, okay, this is now his entire thing, or whatever. So that sort of constant immersion, you can really see, okay, this is the point where De Palma's getting sick of the split screen. This is where he found this new thing. He got this new toy or whatever. And that's really exciting. But you get that when you sort of like just hotbox the guy's entire filmography.
Another one thing I remember really appreciating about this film when I saw it was, especially because I came when I had discovered this film, I was still watching primarily horror films, and the slasher opening of this film I remember really intriguing me, and just that kind of bait and switch, because like when it first happens I was like, I don't remember hearing that this movie is a slasher film, and the way that scene plays out, and then it leads us into this to the inciting incident of this film that puts Jack Terry out on that bridge. He's a sound designer, and I love watching other people watch this opening, especially because my wife is especially funny for a movie like this, because she doesn't want to know anything about a movie going into it, and I love that about her. So like I remember her saying, "It's like, oh, I forgot this is how the movie began." It's like, I know, it's such a compelling way to begin a film, and it also just feels like De Palma playing with his reputation, because he was viewed as like this misogynistic filmmaker. So he puts a film on screen that's really misogynistic and really over the top, and begins his film that way.
In quick succession, as I had my notebook with me, because I knew I was going to have to take notes for the podcast here, and in quick succession I wrote something like De Palma versus Giallo, De Palma versus slasher, and then De Palma versus Sisters, because it's the same fake out as the TV show, which has the same effect and also completely blindsided me, the whole Margot Kidder thing and the blind person in the locker room and all that kind of thing. And I was like, I'm perfectly happy to get fooled by that again.
Yeah. And then another person I absolutely want to talk about is the John Travolta of it all. So
please,
like, John Travolta's career leading up to this point was interesting, because I think this was after Welcome Back, Kotter. And obviously he had worked with Brian De Palma one time before on Carrie, but at the time that this came out, he had made some big hits. He had done Saturday Night Fever. He had done Grease,
Yep.
which I always forget are like back to back with each other.
Yeah.
He did Urban Cowboy, which I actually enjoy. I don't know if it's
love it. I just saw it for the first time a couple years ago, and fantastic.
There's not a world in which I believe that Quentin Tarantino hasn't seen Urban Cowboy.
Yeah,
because feels like a movie that he would love.
100%.
And then he does Blowout.
That location, that whole country bar complex. I'm like, that's such a Tarantino.
And his name is
set piece.
His name is fucking Buford.
Right.
Glorious name.
Right.
And he did Blowout right after that, and I know for a lot, like, I don't know exactly how I feel about John Travolta. I know a lot of people cite Quentin Tarantino and Pulp Fiction as being what kind of brings him back into the limelight. I actually really don't like his performance in that movie very much.
I get it. No, 100%.
I don't think he's bad. I just don't think he...
It's not all that. It was more just the, hey, remember this guy of it all, I think. That people got excited about, like, oh, he's, I think like they talk about like a bear riding a unicycle, or like he is surprisingly good in this.
But I look at Blowout, and he is legitimately good in this film.
He's working his ass off.
He's got all the charm that you need from a leading man like this, to the point where him and Sally don't actually have that many scenes together. But I could believe that they're falling in love with each other because Nancy Allen she just has that aura about her. But then she's bringing a lot of good out of Travolta. Travolta's bringing the best out of her. And he does so much with just a smile. And I've never been that big of a Travolta guy, but I'm sitting here watching I'm falling for John Travolta in this movie.
Yeah. So again, going back to, watching Blow Up and Blowout in the same afternoon, I was very conscious of okay, so David Hemmings is such an asshole in that movie, but he's a really good photographer, and you're like, okay, this is interesting. Also, just it's only 12 years between the blowout of it all, of getting out of your car with the car running and running into an antique shop for 25 minutes and assuming that the car is still going to be there, versus just the vibe of something like Blowout, where everyone is in the sort of post 7 deadbolts on your front door because the world is a hellscape, But, as I was sort of weighing Travolta versus Hemmings, I was thinking Hemmings is such an interesting cipher in that. He's such a jerk in the first half that when he really locks into the mystery of it, he has to really do a lot to kind of get you to care that he cares. And I think I came into the Travolta performance with the fear that of mid-70s Travolta, that he has that sort of countenance of my problem is just that I care too much, and I think I was expecting that from him, and so the fact that he was very understated, he played someone who's, as you said, good at his job, but also not doing the work that he wants to be doing. He's clearly not thrilled with the films that he's working on. But also it's interesting that he doesn't ever really say, he doesn't give any sense of I should be working on this or I should be working on that. Kind of like Harry Call, he just wants the good sound, But yeah, you're right. He does a lot of work that real actors do to sort of disappear a little bit into this role and not just be a series of charming ticks,
Yeah, and he's and just little things that he's doing. I love that he looks like he's not slept. His hair is just very greasy in a way that it doesn't look like, oh, I've been it looks like he put product.
He's not tousled.
He put product in his hair a couple of days ago, and it's still there. Greasy. Yeah. His eyes just look bloodshot and red the entire time because he's just ripping cigarettes while cutting audio in the middle of the night, and like I said, he's not going too big with it.
Yes,
and he completely sells even things like the story that he tells midway through the film, where he talks about the undercover operation that went south, and he can play the cocky cocksure sound guy or cocky cocksure cop earlier on in the
the
in his
younger
career.
version of himself.
But he can also do this tortured artist thing that is not easy to do. Where it doesn't. He's allowing himself to shed his John Travolta persona to be the role.
Yeah. Now, I think I also kind of dip in and out with Travolta's career. Do you feel like this was kind of a one-off for him, doing something where he kind of went this deep into it without being showy, or can you think of other examples of?
It's hard to say because like you, I'm not the biggest Travolta guy. Nope. Like I said, I love him. Like the 1-2 punch of Urban Cowboy and Blowout,
hell yeah,
I think are great. I've actually never seen Saturday Night Fever, so I don't know what he's like in that.
Great movie. Do yourself a favor.
Funny enough, I have seen Staying Alive because of my mother. She prefers Staying Alive over Saturday Night Fever.
It's a lot sexier, that's for sure.
And then like my entry.
Speaking of 70s bummers, I mean, you think Saturday Night Fever is one thing. It is a classic 70s bummer movie, man.
Which I think is the reason why she doesn't like it, and the reason why I want
totally
to
understandable.
see it.
No, there's abortions, there's all kinds of stuff in that movie.
But like for me, my entry point to John Travolta was Look Who's Talking, those films, and that part of his career, and it's really interesting to look at his career, pretty much up until Staying Alive. He was then in kind of a rut until Pulp Fiction.
Yep.
And I don't know. It's like to me, this feels the most committed he was at this point in his career. Because after Pulp Fiction, he's kind of just doing Vincent Vega again, where the way he fucking talks in that movie just annoys the shit out of me.
Yeah.
But then he's just kind of doing that in every movie afterwards. It's like, I'm John Travolta. This is the John Travolta thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think this is kind of his peak moment.
So the question is then, I guess, did people not want to cast him doing something this challenging, or like what do you think happened? Because sometimes you can see, like Andy Griffith talks about, facing the crowd and how he like so unnerved himself by the intensity of that role that he just played nice guys for the rest of his life or whatever. But like I don't necessarily get the sense that this role changed John Travolta, or this, and like you said, Urban Cowboy and this together. I don't know that it necessarily changed him in that way, but it does seem like no one else was knocking on his door to say, like, give me more of that Jack.
Yeah, especially as he took a, this came out in 81, and then Staying Alive came out in 83, and Staying Alive was a hit.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I know a lot of people shit on it.
I think it had the momentum from, I mean, when you're essentially the sequel to Saturday Night Fever, like your first couple weeks are going to be a hit regardless. But yeah, it definitely stuck around for sure.
And like, so I just don't know I don't know if he was just choosing poor projects after that. And then, like he said, he did the Look Who's Talking films.
I think you have to kind of also just, I mean, elephant in the room, the Scientology of it all. Like there's that, like suddenly money is very important for a number of reasons, So I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I mean, I know he was doing Scientology as far back as.
Yeah, but it didn't hurt Tom Cruise. It didn't hurt Tom Cruise's career.
No, that's true. That's true. Although he definitely picked a lane. I think they both picked a lane in that same way. It's just that Tom Cruise's lane was very profitable and also critically not terrible for him.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't really have an answer for that.
Just curious.
Because it's I guess for me, this is the best that he has been.
One of the things, I don't know why I'm so angry about this, but like while watching the special features for The Devil's Reign, the Severin disc, finding out that John Travolta was, I think, turned on to Scientology during the shooting of The Devil's Reign by the actress Joan Prager from Smile, who I adore, and I'm like, what are you doing? I'm not smiling right now. Hearing that Joan Prager was the one that was like, hey, you got to try this. And then she left. And then he was like, oh, no, we're long haul, baby, long haul. So I don't know why, just seeing that happen amidst, Anton LaVey and, what's her name? Ida Lupino and all the people in that movie.
No, it's that entire
Upsetting.
thing intrigues me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I know there's been some really interesting documentaries about it. I've just not gotten to any of them yet.
Yeah.
So I also just want to talk about. So I think one of the things that is helping the performance, and this is not to say the performances aren't great, but I feel like Pino Donaggio is doing a lot of work on this film.
Yeah.
His
score. Let's talk the score.
Is incredible, especially because you're a music writer. So I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on the Pino Donaggio score, and then just that amazing theme. That it's my favorite love theme of all time. And one could even argue, because depending on the way that he plays it, sometimes he plays it a little deeper. Sometimes he plays it a little bit more bright. Sometimes it feels like a falling in love scene and theme, and sometimes it feels like it's a tragedy theme.
And sometimes there's just like buzzing synth noise, like there's an electronic
jazzy
component. There's jazz.
Dun.
Oh no, that was Reds last night. Dave Grusin had a partial thing along with Sondheim for Reds, but yeah, no, there's the sort of jazz elements. There's the sort of heavy heartbreak of it. There's the electronic thriller of it. Like, I mean, Pino Donaggio is just a god. I mean, I don't know that I was locked in on the theme as much, but I will say that kind of giving away some of my thrill house of it all was him recording sound in the park, and not even the blowout itself, but the lead up to it, just getting the owl pointing the mic this way, getting the wind in the trees, the footsteps, the whatever it is he's capturing. That's a particular sound type of sort of sound collaging that I really, really love. One of my favorite sort of experimental music projects is a project called G Park. Is a Swiss composer named Mark Zayer. He works as a plankton farmer in Switzerland, but he just records like these very precise and very just sort of beautifully recorded, just sort of isolated sounds, like a cluster of gnats over a cow's skull, or the sound of a phone receiver hanging up in a hotel room, or like something plopping out of water, and just hearing these discrete sounds sort of put together in a way like that particular scene really turned into music to me, just because that's, again, the way my brain kind of processes these sorts of things. But I thought Donaggio and or De Palma did an incredible job of really suggesting the sort of three-dimensionality of sound, the way he is able to, as he's listening, beautiful, editing on this, the way he sort of is listening to the sounds on his tape, and then De Palma has him sort of recreating what he saw in his mind based on those sounds. And you can tell that he's saying like, well, this started here, and there's something happening over here that sounds like a gunshot, and there's something over here that happens right after the owl hits, and the sort of three-dimensionality of that particular set of sounds, and the fact that it's a real plot point, that he's so good at his job that he can sort of recreate the evening's visuals based on what he's hearing on the audio. Like, that to me was like really, really exciting.
No, and then even just that little detail of hearing the click and like the pull and click sound that we eventually find out is the garrote wire for John Lithgow's character. And there's that moment where he can't place what that sound is. And us
I got a rock in the pit of my stomach just when you said the Garrett thing that he said. I was like, oh God, that's right.
And then just the way that sound is weaved throughout the film before, and because like there's even a moment where we're introduced to his character where we hear the sound, but we don't necessarily see how he's creating it. We don't put that together until I think when he kills that first woman that looks like Sally.
Yep.
And just the fact that it's like this nervous tick almost that he's doing, like and
incredible.
The way that Pino Donaggio scores this film, I think, is incredible because not only it manages to be a star in itself, but still not overtake the film. Because I feel like there's I'm a huge fan of soundtracks, and there's a trend that I'm noticing more and more of scores that are just really milquetoast. Like they do a fine job of scoring what's on the film, but they have no personality. We're at this point where we are gone from melody. Like so many, and I don't want to generalize because a lot of composers still are, but like the reason that Jerry Goldsmith is my favorite composer is because he would find ways to incorporate melodies, even in something like First Blood has some really beautiful melodies in that film.
I fucking love First Blood.
There's some beautiful melodies in that film. And he's, just fucking murdering people and trying to.
Oh yeah, but he feels
survive.
real bad about it.
Yeah,
that's how the music reflects.
Trying to survive in the woods, but like nowadays, that same film will just have dark, ominous tones.
Oh yeah,
and so like the fact that this film can do both of those things, it can score the film.
It's stunning.
And
absolutely,
and it's very distinct, but it doesn't overtake the image.
Between De Palma's eye and Filmo Stigman's camera and Pino Donaggio's sound, like you just always feel really taken care of. Like this is going to be a total piece of entertainment, and I think, like I said, I think I'm going to need to focus more on the score on second listen. But yeah, I mean, I would always kind of come back to it and go, oh man, he's really working his ass off over there. That's great.
Yeah, and then. Yeah. Before we start wrapping up, I do obviously want to talk about Vilmos Zsigmond, the cinematographer on this film. Yes. So I saw this film when I was in film school, or, when I was still in film school. And it kind of rewired something in my brain a little bit. I love the look of this film, and then pretty much of 1970s films, and a big part of that is because of the film stocks that they were using.
100%.
The way the color represented, but then the way that neon colors show, like that sequence in the through the fish market, and that minty neon color that you can only get because of not only the colors of those lights, but then the film stock that they were shooting on. Because so one of my obsessions when it comes to cinematography is mixed light sources. Because when you're shooting on film, and to an extent when you're shooting on video, but you have a lot more control on video. You had to decide. Okay, we are shooting at night. Most of the bulbs are going to be tungsten. We should probably use a tungsten film. Well, not every bulb that we're going to see is going to be tungsten, so we're going to get a lot of weird colors and weird color sources. And I love that De Palma doesn't run from it.
No.
And if anything, he kind of plays with it. So he has this really stark neon green color in the middle of the film, and I love that he bookends it in the film with other scenes of really extreme reds.
Oh yeah.
So he's not going full Argento necessarily with his color palettes, but he's not strictly living in the world of reality at all times.
Yeah.
And I love the look of this film, and like I commented on it earlier in this podcast, where it's somehow both polished and gritty at the same time.
Yeah, that exact same color. I immediately like my eyes lit up at that exact same color of green and that same kind of outdoor fish market, because it reminded me of another film from the 70s that I got to imagine the director was, you know, not running from green in the same way. It was Peter Hyams' first film, Busting. I don't know if you've seen that one.
No, I've not.
Yeah, it's Elliot Gould and I think Robert Blake. It's a real like golden age of police overreach kind of movie. If you're into the like policemen going like, I gotta do what I gotta do, even if it means stamping on some civil rights kind of thing. But there is a scene where they're in like some kind of an outdoor market like that, and it's that same sort of that sort of ugly neon green, and you know, people, you know, getting run over as like a chase is happening, and yeah, there's something very specifically 70s. I love hearing about it because I don't know anything about cinematography or films. You know, I just know that all of a sudden movies in the 1980s just didn't look as cool to me, and I don't know why, but I suspect, you know, with pinpoint detail what was missing.
Maybe not pinpoint, but
More so than me, for sure.
well, one thing that definitely changed over time is film stocks became faster, which means they could shoot into the dark a lot more.
Okay.
So that's both a good thing and a bad thing. That's why 'cause this movie is shot like 70% at night.
Oh yeah.
So they used a faster film stock so that way they didn't have to use as much light, because they're also running and gunning on some of this film. Um, so because of that, that's why there's also such uh, strong grain in some of those nighttime sequences. Um, but as time went on, film stocks became faster and faster, could handle low lights better. It's really an epidemic now with digital photography. Now that cameras can essentially shoot into the dark, and you can there's not as much intentionality and not as much use of shadows because people don't feel like they need to.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the reasons, because 1970s films had that gritty feel to it, partially because of the film stocks. Actually, almost entirely because of the film stocks. You know, something like Taxi Driver looks the way it does because it was shot at night, and you know, you could only pour so much light on a set when when you're shooting in New York City on a low budget.
Hmm.
So
I love another thing I love about sort of the sort of boutique era is I got that 4K Dolby Vision enabled release of Martin, the George Romero film,
yes,
which 16 millimeter on short ends, and you put in that precise, exacting, beautifully color graded, and you're like, damn, this looks grimy. You're like, this looks so grimy. This looks exactly as grimy as it's supposed to look. And yeah, for people of a certain disposition, I think that's just, you know, it's just catnip.
No, it definitely is. And like, small little tangent, I think one of the biggest misconceptions people have with 4K is that they think movies are going to look polished and new as if they were just shot, and really, a grimy looking movie is going to look grimier, just because you can capture more of that natural grain without it turning into noise.
Yeah, like, yeah, the thing I don't know if this is exactly true, but I think of it as like the difference between like seeing a piece of art in person versus seeing it in like a newspaper, and then like 4K is like seeing it in like a really good like Taschen art book. Like you've gotten as much of the detail from the thing as you possibly can, and it's going to just look better, you know, like you're going to get more of the intrinsic, you know, you can almost see the brush strokes, you can almost see the you know, the divots in the canvas or whatever, and yeah, once you see like a really well done 4K of, you know, something like Daughters of Darkness, where it's just like, oh my god, you know, like I didn't know colors could look like this on my TV screen, you know. And
that one specifically is just gorgeous.
That was the one where I really realized that the investment in a 4K player and a OLED TV during the pandemic was money well spent.
No, absolutely. And you know, last thing I'll say on that is, because you'll if you spend any time on social media in the, you know, boutique Blu-ray forums, you'll find a lot of people being like, I don't know, this looks 4K doesn't look that good. I will say you do need a certain size television to really get the benefits of it. And not all HDR is built the same. Just because your TV has it doesn't mean it knows how to use it. So,
spend the extra money.
Spend the extra money,
please.
Your $200 television that can do HDR, it's an Edgewood television. I'm not, I get it. Everyone's finances are a little bit different, but my personal rule is get the best TV you can for the price that you can afford it. But I always choose quality over size.
Yes.
I'd rather have a 55-inch OLED than an 85-inch piece of shit.
That's exact. I live in a bungalow. 55 is about as big as I can go, but that OLED TV has served me well.
Exactly. All right. So I know you said you took some notes. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we get to our Thrill House moment?
No, I think we covered sort of most of what I wanted to talk about. But yeah, no, I'm very, very excited to have got this movie to enter into my life because there's a lot to think about, and all the stuff you were talking about with the score and whatever. I think this is going to be a hugely rewatchable film.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't rewatch it as much as I'd like to. Mostly just because I don't rewatch things as much as I'd like to, just period.
There's a ticking clock feeling at a certain point in your life. As you learn about more and more films, I feel like there's just like, I can't rewatch that. I've got this stack of Code Red DVDs, Blu-rays I got to get through,
Yep, and then I always get met with the, well, then why do you buy so many movies? I'm not here for that. I don't want to have that conversation.
Not at all. But think of how cool I'm going to feel as I'm strutting around my room 15 years from now watching Blow Up for the second time.
Exactly. All right, so you had mentioned in your email to me that you have your Thrill House moment, and then you have the moment you thought the film is telling you to be your Thrill House moment. Explain to me what you mean.
I would say that, I think De Palma knows what he has in that last 10 minutes, 15 minutes. That is a hell of a chase sequence. That is a hell of a thriller conclusion. By any reasonable measure, that should have been my Thrill House moment. The the fireworks, over Nancy Allen's body or whatever, that should have been the Thrill House moment. But like I said before, my Thrill House moment was John Travolta in the park with the Niagara and the microphone and just doing what he does really, really well. I could watch that over and over. In college we used to do, you would just throw on your favorite 5 minutes from a movie, and then you'd put another one in and you just kind of okay, we got to watch the duel scene in Barry Lyndon, or we got to watch, the final scene in The Shining or whatever. I could watch John Travolta in the park capturing those sounds up to and including the blowout. And like you said, the double shot of him and the owl, that's my Thrill House moment.
Yeah. And
hard.
I love that sequence, especially because I related a lot to that sequence. So once again, I feel like it's a drinking game at this point. I was in film school when I saw this film.
Sure.
And shout out to Steve Wetzel, who was my sound and film professor. So the school I went to, UW Milwaukee, is an experimental film school. We watched things like Wavelength, or we watched things like Stan Brakhage, George Kuchar, things like that. That is the stuff that we studied. And this sound and film professor was really big into us creating soundscapes. But he didn't want us just, going out and finding the sounds online. He wanted us to have some sort of relationship to the audio. So we had a class where we soldered our own microphones together, and used felt as essentially a windsock, and we had these little stereo microphones. And he told us he wanted us to go out and just record sounds and see how things sound if you put a microphone here or a microphone there or wherever, and build soundscapes out of it. And I remember, I didn't have a sensitive boom mic like he does, and also just impressive to not have some sort of sheath on that microphone while you're out trying to record wind. He is confident in his ability.
That is a G right there.
So like, but I've been out in the middle of a park with these two microphones, just listening to the world around me, listening to people who didn't think I was there. So I relate so heavily to that scene. Also, for any of you home theater people out there, watch that movie in surround sound. The soundscapes in that film are incredible, especially because stereo does not mean left and right when it comes to film. Stereo is an early form of surround sound. And it even says in your Criterion booklet that you need to turn on Dolby Pro Logic to unlock the actual surround sound mix for that film. And it's a stunning mix, let me tell you.
Oh, 100%. No, I still have, it's not a new setup, but I still have my 5.1 speaker system around my house. And I'm always, I'm never going to soundbar it. Like, it just doesn't even make sense. Like, you gotta get that depth of field.
Exactly. All right. So my Thrill House moment is, I could easily make a case that it's the same one that you have, but I don't like to piggyback on them. So I would say my Thrill House moment is that phenomenal 360 shot, and when John Travolta is going through all of his tapes and finding out they're all blank, and it has that layering of sound that you were talking about, and just the way that the camera is moving around that room. It's inspired. Like, honestly, like, ever since I've seen that scene, I'm like, I need to, in my own filmmaking, I need to find an excuse and a reason to put a 360 shot in a film. Because at the same time, De Palma, and he talks about this on that hour-long documentary, he's really big on intentionality. He doesn't want to just add it because it's fucking cool. He doesn't view things that way. There has to be a reason. And that is the only way that scene could have been shot for him. And so I just haven't found my reason yet for a 360 shot.
Right. Yeah. You need that right emotion to come through. Am I right in remembering that, like, it also sort of selectively mutes like what he's saying? Or, like, I feel like there's something in the sound mix that sort of mirrors the fact that his tapes are blank. Like, something is like consciously absent in the sound mix.
I'm not sure, but now I'm intrigued.
Okay.
I guess I need another excuse to go back and watch Blowout.
Oh darn.
All right. So unless you have nothing else, I think we've gotten everything we can say right now out of Blowout. I'm sure as soon as we stop, we'll come up with something.
Yes.
So where can the people online find you if they want to keep up with what Chris Sienko is up to?
Okay, so obviously the place where I do most of my socials is at Def Crocodile. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, the Everything app, Blue Sky, whatever, at Def Crocodile. It's all just one word, no dashes, no underscores. I am on Letterboxd at El Sienko, so it's EL_SIENKO. And I'm also that, I believe, at Instagram. I don't do as much social mediaing of my own life, but you're certainly welcome to visit me at those places as well. But yeah, mostly check out Def Crocodile. That's where I'm really sort of channeling a lot of my effort. And yeah, follow me on Letterboxd. I love Letterboxd. I love writing reviews. I like reading other people's reviews. I like the Algonquin Roundtable like vibe of like being able to like just follow people who are good, interesting writers and not have to sort of like just do the sort of clout chasey, reviews. Like I'm very, very happy with like the people I follow on there, and I like hearing other people's thoughts on.
Yeah,
on
I'm pretty selective about who I follow. Actually, I just followed you. I'm pretty selective in that I want there to be people that have something, and I'm not expecting like 4-paragraph reviews or anything. I just want some interesting perspective.
Oh, wait till you check out my account. You get ready for some 16-paragraph reviews.
I love it. No, I do love that stuff. Sometimes since I created the stupid idea that I need to review everything that I watch. I don't know why I did that to myself.
I do the same.
Sometimes I'm
200 films behind, but I do the same thing.
Sometimes I have a lot to say. Sometimes I don't. But yeah, I see it on all the time, like on Letterboxd, like fan pages and things. People are like, well, follow me. I was like, no, I don't want to follow you unless you have something to say, 100%. Or if I like your perspective. So I keep my grouping kind of tight because I want, and I try to follow a lot of film critics as well, just because I have a love for film criticism and I don't want that art form to die. All right. And yes, everyone should be checking out Deaf Crocodile. Let me tell you, so in the span of the time that we've been sitting here talking, I was going over the Deaf Crocodile listings, and my wife has already bought one of the movies.
Nice. What'd you get?
She bought, because it's a movie that she's been telling me actually a lot about, Feel a Day.
Oh, heck yeah. Nice.
So in the span that we've been talking, she bought Feel a Day off of the Deaf Crocodile website. So I'm sure you all will find something. And here's the thing. I'm not going to say you'll find something you'll know. You're not probably going to find something you know, but just buy something interesting. You won't regret it.
Get the Tuvo Tulio set. I know it's a little extra. It's 3 movies. I will go door to door and hand sell every single copy of that Tuvo Tulio set if I have to. I am so enamored of that box set. And I know that it's very we got to sell them all before a volume 2 can happen. So that's my personal rec.
No, which one was it again?
Tuvo Tulio. He's a Finnish melodramaticist. I don't know. Melodrama filmmaker. It's got 2 films from the 40s, one from 1973. 2 of them are based on the same Pushkin short story. They are, if you like Fassbinder, if you like Douglas Sirk, if you like Almodovar, they are cranked to that level and higher. It is hands clawing, eye rolling, teeth gritting melodrama with capital M. And then 1973 Sensuela, the third one on there, is just a straight up sexploitation film.
Send me the link to that, and I will probably be picking that up myself. All right, and at this point, everyone should know where to find me. Michael_Viers on all forms of social media. I'm also Shameless Picture Show. You can find me on TikTok for some fucking reason. I'm still there. But I also cross-post all my reels over to Instagram. I talk about aspect ratios a lot. I review physical media. I love it. And I appreciate y'all listening. Make sure you come back next time. Shame Place, Shameless Picture Show.
The Shameless Picture Show is a proud member of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network. The show is recorded in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and is hosted and produced by Michael Viers. The show was created by Nicholas Richards and Michael Viers, and the show is edited by Austin Proctor of the Frightmares podcast. Amanda Viers is the show's graphic designer and a big help behind the scenes. Our theme music was written specifically for us by Austin Proctor, with narration by yours truly, Nick Richards. The end credit music you're currently enjoying was generously provided to us by the band 10 Speed. An extra special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters and our generous sponsors. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. For more information, be sure to check out someone'sfavoriteproductions.com.
Thank you for listening. To hear more shows from the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, please select the link in the description